Hey class, Dr. Danju here again. Today, what we're going to be covering is Chapter 7. Chapter 7 deals with sampling. Do you use samples to help you make informed decisions? In other words, do you use examples, real life examples, to help you become a better version of you? Hopefully you are. So what I want you to do is right off the bat, think of an example that made you a better version of you. All right. As I'm thinking about it, I think of a whole bunch of different things. I just recently lost my dad, so that's why that is on the forefront of my mind, and all the lessons and all the examples he has provided me to make me a better version of me. Today, we're talking about sampling. Can we use a sample to help us make informed decisions? Yes. In fact, that is statistical inference. Is when we use a sample to understand the population's parameters. So what we're going to do today is show you how to actually calculate from a sample to help us make informed decisions. So what I'm going to do is do a quick review of chapters 5 and 6, and then we'll jump into chapter 7. So once again, I'll share my screen. My head is going to be on a swivel. Bear with me, all right, as we get through this. All right, so let's go through chapters 5, all right, discrete probability distribution. Please be reminded that in discrete probability distribution, we're dealing with actual regular calculations and formulas, but can we find the most effective and efficient way of doing it in Excel? Yes, we can. So you can calculate the mean, then you can calculate the square deviation from the mean, the variance, and your standard deviation. If you're dealing with binomial, you're dealing with some kind of success rate. Here is the manual formula. We have shown you guys how to use Excel to keep this thing simple, and it ends in false. We use binomial distribution, and we can find the probability at each specific point. Poisson, if we're dealing with some kind of time or space problem, here was your manual formula. Yeah. All right. But we can use Poisson distribution, and we can find the probability at each specific point. Hypergeometric is a souped up version of binomial. This is what it will look like right here. All right, that was chapters 5. Chapter 6, continuous normal distribution. Can we calculate the probabilities in other words, between 2 points, uniformly, normally, and exponentially? Yes, for uniform. Remember, to find the probabilities between x1 and x2, all we did was the probability of the smaller box, the range of your smaller box, divided by the range of your bigger box. And that is how you can calculate the probabilities up in here. For normal distribution, remember we can calculate between 2 points. Remember we said x to z to probability. All right. The old way was we would have to do each piece at a time, but you guys get to use Excel. You can go straight from your z to your probability. All right. Look in there. If it says the probability of z, you're going from z to probability. If you had a regular X value, for example, 20,000, you can go from your 20,000 to your probability by using the normal dot distribution function. Please be reminded, if you're going to the right, you must do 1 minus. If you're going in between two numbers, you must do the larger number first minus the smaller number. If you're just going to the left, you just use the regular function. All right. Same concept for exponential. All right. We use expon that distribution. All right. So with that said, let's get into our lesson for today. Today, we're talking about sampling. Can we use a sample to help us make informed decisions? And what kind of calculations do we need to do to make this right, to make this work correctly? We'll show you that here today. But I always want to come from a Christian worldview perspective. What samples does God provide us to help us make informed decisions? Here's a quick note to self. When God does a sample, he uses a sample of one. When we do a sample, we need a sample of 30 or more. We're not perfect, right? But God uses a sample of one. And from my Christian worldview perspective, I'm going to be using these two characters right here. This guy, he's going to represent Jesus. And this young lady right here, she's going to represent the woman at the well. All right. So once again, we're using a sample to help us make informed decision. So today, I am coming from a little weird, uncomfortable perspective. All right. This woman, if she were to be in today's society, would be considered, I'm sorry to put it out there like this, but a hoe. Mm, yes, I said a hoe. All right. But a lot of times we hear certain words and we have a negative connotation towards it. But could your blessing be wrapped up in your mess? Or, in other words, could your sin get you to salvation? Could your thing that you think is in darkness produce, or the end result of it gets you to the light? In this situation, I'm going to be talking about her story. All right. And her story is from this concept of the whole mentality. So I'm going to paraphrase the story, all right? And then we're going to wrap up with the actual scripture verse of what actually happened to her, all right? So I want you to think of it from the whole mentality perspective, all right? Blessings are always wrapped up in darkness. Your light is at the end of the tunnel. Don't see your negative as negative, but see your negative as a way for you to get to the positive, in other words. All right. So just imagine this is the only situation where Jesus actually goes and waits for someone. He shows up to the well with his disciples and sends his disciples off to get some food. So that way he can spend personal one-on-one time with this young lady. All right. She shows up, she's a Samaritan, and Jesus is a Jew. So in those days, Samaritans and Jews don't talk to each other. They have a conflict. The reason why they separated was that the Samaritans went a hoeing after other nations. So they split up because basically the Samaritans represents the whole of the Jewish religion. They both come from Abraham, but they split because one went after another nation and doing their own messy stuff according to the scripture. All right. So here it is. Jews and Samaritans don't talk to each other, but Jesus is waiting to talk to her. So Jesus sees her and he says, "Give me water to drink." She says, "You are a Jew. I'm a Samaritan." Jesus says, "If you knew who was asking, you would ask me for water that never runs dry." She then says, "This well is deep. You have nothing to build the water with. Where can you get this living water from?" Jesus replied, "This water you will thirst again. But the water I give you, you will not thirst again." So she said, "Give me that water, man." You know what I'm saying? And then Jesus says, "Go get your husband." She says, "I have no husband." Jesus says, "You speak the truth. You had five husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband." At this point, she realized that she was talking to someone who knew her for who she is, knew all the facts about her. As the conversation went on, she realized that she was actually talking to the Messiah, this person that was going to come back to save them from their sins. From this point is where we're going to pick up from our scripture verse. And once again, we're using this to help us make informed decisions. A question to you is, would you hang out with a hoe? Some of y'all like, oh, no, no, no. Here's a better question. Would you hang out with yourself? Could it be that you are this hoe? Could it be that you are thirsty after stuff that you shouldn't be thirsty after? All right. So here it is. Jesus is talking to her. She realized that he is the Messiah. She becomes one of the greatest evangelists ever documented in the Bible. All right. After she found out that Jesus was the Messiah, she went back, and this is where the story picks up in John 4:29 through 41. She went back to our townspeople and communicated what she had experienced with Jesus. Many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. Now, think about it from a whole mentalities perspective. A whole would basically have the ability to maneuver, to be able to get men to do whatever she wants to get them to do. All right. Think about how she can manipulate. Think about how she can connect. Think about how she can do what she needs to do to get what she needs to get done. All right. She has a skill set. Could now that skill set be used for good? Could your whorish ways be a way to get you to the promised land, to get you to where you need to get to? Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in Jesus because of her testimony. He told me everything I ever did, y'all. So when the Samaritans came to him, to Jesus, while he was at the well, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. Jesus hung out with them for 2 days. Samaritans that they really shouldn't even be talking to because of her testimony. Blessings are wrapped up in mess. Please get that in your head. We're using data and information to help us make informed decisions. And because of his words, many more became believers. Let's put a pin on this part right here. We're using sample to help us make informed decisions. If Jesus goes to a tongue and he represents God himself, and he did not get everyone, he got many more to believe in him. Some of us post stuff on social media and expect everyone to like our stuff. If Jesus, God himself, wasn't able to get everyone to believe, why would you get everyone to like your post? Why would you, once you do something, expect everyone to be in on what you're saying? Nah, it doesn't work that way. We're using samples to help us understand the population as a whole, the way things actually happen. Today, we're going to be using samples, just like the example of the woman at the well, to help us understand life in general. Stats is life. To help us calculate the samples to help us make informed decisions. All right. So, how will we do this today? All right. We're going to be selecting, showing you how to select a sample. We're going to help you to understand point estimations. We're going to actually be doing calculations with sampling. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right. So a quick introductions. Remember we dealt with elements. Elements showed up in the rows section. All right. Population is everything. Samples is a subset of everything and so on and so forth. All right. But when we're dealing with samples, we can deal with samples in two ways, from a finite perspective or an infinite perspective. All right. Ultimately, whether it's finite or infinite, we're basically using random data. Random data. All right. And finite is like an actual known number. Infinite is an unknown population. All right. We can take samples from whether it is known or unknown to help us make informed decisions. All right. So what is a finite, a known number, infinite, unknown number? Great. Point estimates. You guys are going to see things within your homework and in the real world, they might say something to you like, find the point estimate of this. What they're actually saying is find the sample of this. So if they said, find the point estimate of the mean, it means find the sample of the mean. If they say find the point estimate of the proportion, what they're saying is find the sample of the proportion. All right. Now, please understand that your samples must mirror your population parameters. So let's say, for example, we had the average as this, your population's average as this, your population standard deviation as this, your population's proportion as this. Your sample must mirror, must be very close to these numbers. All right, so let's say you had a sample looking like this. You will say, man, this is a good sample because it's very close to the population parameter. Yeah, yeah. So here's your population parameter. Here's your sample. These are good samples because it's very close to your population value. But here's the note. Whenever a sample is used to make inferences about a population, we should make sure that the target population and the sampled population are in close agreement. If they're not in close agreement, you'd be like, man, this is not a good sample. This is not stuff that we should be using. You want your sample data and your population data to mirror, to almost look identical. All right, let's keep this thing rolling. So here's a quick example. You have a whole bunch of numbers, and in the homework assignment, for example, they say, what does the point estimate of the population mean? What is the sample of this data? All right, in Excel, we can use the average. You put all those numbers in, okay, you will have your answer. So when you hear point estimate, it is the sample of whatever they're talking about. Yeah, yeah. All right. So ultimately, we want to find the population's average. So how do we do it? Once again, we get a random sample, random data, no bias, no funk, no junk. All right. It is randomly selected. Every piece has an opportunity to be selected. Then once we get a sample, then we get the average of that sample, and then we check to see if that average mirrors the population parameter. All right, good, good, good. So how is it actually written? All right, it is written like this. Your expected value of x bar, should be equal to or mirror your population's average. Yeah, yeah. It must be unbiased. Take out the funk, take out the junk. It must be randomly selected to get rid of the biases. All right. Good, good, good. So ultimately, when we're dealing with chapter 7, it's two mindsets I want you guys to take with you. First, we're going to calculate the standard error. Then we're going to calculate the probabilities. So if we're dealing with regular x values, calculate the standard error, calculate the probabilities. If we're dealing with proportion, it follows the same pattern. Different formulas, same pattern. Calculate the standard error, calculate your probabilities. All right, here's a quick note. Doubling the size of the sample will reduce the standard error of the mean by approximately 70%. The higher the sample size, all right, the lower the standard error. All right, so I'm going to quickly show you guys some examples, but when we're doing a sample, we need it to be 30 or more. 50 or more is even better. All right, but ultimately, let's say we were to have this example right here. All right, let's say the mean was this middle value right here, 5180. All right. In your problems, you're going to get things like a within value, within 500. So you go from that mean minus 500, that will be your lower limit. Plus 500 will be your upper limits. All right. And this is the area that we're concerned about. What is the probability between this area right here within 500 of your mean? All right. Good. How do we do this? We first calculate the standard error. Then we'll calculate your probability. All right. So in essence, this area right here is 50% of your data. Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're going to do it with regular x values. We're also going to do it with regular p values, all right, proportion values. Here's your proportion center point, your mean, all right. Your within is 0.05, all right, so minus 0.05 plus 0.05. What is the probability over here? First, you find your standard error, then you calculate your probability. All right. So with that said, we are ready to put this into practice to see how sampling actually works. If you can, please go into the Trello board and grab your Excel for chapter 7. So let me go find my Trello board. All right. Once again, it's within my classroom, but I'm going to click on my Trello board up here. The Trello board link is in the description below. So click on the link and you'll be able to get here. In the link, you can find the PowerPoint, all right, that we're using for today. And you can also find the Excel homework tips and trick videos. So if there's something that you miss, you can go back to the video and find it here. All right. But what we're going to do is click on chapters 5 through 8 Excel templates, scroll down and grab your chapter 7. Download it. All right. Enable it. And please, if you would, save it. So go to File, Save As, Browse. Please put it on your desktop somewhere. Hopefully you got a nice folder on your desktop. Yep. BUS352. All right, chapter 7. I'm going to save it in there. Save these. You will need these for your exam. On the exam, we have 2 problems that will be on here that we got to make sure that we get correct. All right. Those 2 problems are going to be 7.18 and 7.29. All right. So 7.18 and 7.29, we're going to make sure that we have those straight. All right. So now that you have that, please also go to Cengage and open up chapter 7. So somewhere around week 5, you should see chapter 7 in your calendar. Click on it, open assignment. All right. And while that is opening, I will highly recommend that you do a dual screen. So I'm going to slide this over to the right, grab my Excel. All right, I'm going to start that. All right. Can we please start off with 7.07, please? So click through until you find 7.07, like right here. Perfect. All right. We're going to find the point estimate, and we're going to see how samples can help us use. We can use these samples to help make informed decisions. Let's go. Let's go. All right. So this first one right here, please enter your numbers as you see them. All right, I got my numbers in there. So then the problem says the following data are from a simple random sample, which is good. All right, what is the point estimate of the population mean? In other words, what does the sample mean? So this is why we will do the average formula, copy, paste, and the range. If you double click on range, it highlights the range. Select your all of your numbers. All right, press enter. And they want 1 decimal place. Outstanding. So then how do you find the standard deviation? Here it is. All right, don't forget, standard deviation is the spreadness of your data. Double click on range. It highlights range. Click on the values. All right. Too easy. So when they're asking for the point estimate, it is the sample data that you're dealing with. Outstanding. All right, let's go to 7.09, please. Same concept. Click through until you find 7.09. All right, please plug in your numbers. So you got months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, units sold. Please type in your units sold. All right, don't forget, junk in equals junk out. Make sure that you're typing it in there correctly. Yep. And then it says, what is the point estimate of the mean? You know how we do. Copy, paste, double click, and select. Click and drag. All right, do the same thing for the standard deviation. Copy your formula, paste, double click, and select. All right, this first one is just a regular whole number. The second one, 2 decimal places. Check your work. Outstanding. Good work, good work, good work. All right, let's move on to 7.13. Thought I saw that somewhere up here. Yep. All right. So 7.13, American Automobile Association Annual Automated Vehicle Survey includes a series of questions about automobiles, automation technology. All right. Here is the sample size. Plug in your number. Actually, we all have the same number, so plug it in. All right. Count for response. All right. They completed the survey in 2021, showed that 222 respondents. All right. Fuel manufacturers should focus on developing self-driving vehicles. All right. So plug in your number. All right. So we got our sample size. We got, then it goes on to say, develop a point estimate of the proportion. All right, how do you find proportion? Here is your formula. Copy it, paste it. Your count for response is this number, your smaller number, or your X divided by your N, if that makes any sense. I know it says count for response divided by N1. It might not make sense to you. X divided by N. All right, that is your count for response. Let's copy that. Let's paste that. Outstanding. So develop a point estimate of the proportion. All right. And we're going to be using this. So in this example for B, let me see, did they change numbers? In addition, 808 respondents want current vehicle safety great. So we're going to put that right here. Your count for response is 808. All right, so I'm going to do this guy right here. Copy this, paste this, double click. So my new count for response is this. And I could use this N1 or I could use the one up here. All right, I'm just going to use the very top N1. I'm going to copy that answer, paste it in there. Outstanding. And then the last one says, all right, to work better, and 586 respondents wanted these systems in the next vehicle they purchased. All right, so I'm gonna put 586, same concept, grab this. This is how you calculate proportions. This divided by this. Press enter. All right, I'm gonna copy and paste. Check your work. Make sure that you are good. 7.18. I got 7.18 right here. So please go to 7.18. All right, and let's knock out 7.18. All right, suppose a random sample of 55. Put in your sample size. All right, with a standard deviation of 10. All right. This is where we get to do find the standard error, find your probabilities. All right, so I got those numbers. I'm going to find my standard error, copy this formula, paste it. All right, do you see how it is wrapped within the cell? As you start getting longer formulas, this is going to be problematic. You want them in a straight line. All right, so let me show you real fast how to unwrap this. If you click on the cell itself, all right, I'm going to maximize this. I'm going to zoom in on this just a tad bit. All right, do you see where it says wrap text? If you click it, it unwraps the text and keeps it all within a straight line. That's the way I prefer to see it. All right, so I'm going to make sure that is unwrapped. I'm going to make sure this is unwrapped. All of these is unwrapped. So that way, when I see my actual calculations and formulas, it's all in a straight line. All right, so I'm going to go back into this one, standard deviation. If you double click on standard deviation, you can click on your standard deviations number. Double click on N, grab your N's value. That is a simple way to calculate your standard error. All right, so let me slide this back over. All right. So for infinite, how do you calculate the standard error? 1.35. That's how we did it. Outstanding. All right. Now, these are for your infinite. This one was for infinite. This is for your finite values. All right. They're going to give you an n value, 50,000. All right. They're going to give you an n2 value, 5,000. They're going to give you a n value, 500. All right. Can you calculate your standard error? Yes. Here's your formula. Yeah. It's kind of long-winded, but we're going to get through this. Copy, paste. All right. N1, click it. Your lowercase n, click it. N1, double click and click the number associated with it. Grab your standard deviation, grab your n, all right, and press enter. Yeah. This is an exam question, so we got to make sure that we get this one done right. All right. So we got that done. Good. Now, please be aware that these numbers might be identical. Whether it's finite or infinite, your numbers are going to be identical. So don't panic on the exam. Oh man, this must be wrong because these are identical. All right. Yes, they are supposed to mirror each other. All right. So let's go to the second one. Double click and paste. All right. N2, click it. N, click it. N2, click it. Standard deviation, click it. And your lowercase n, click it. So make sure that you got all these pieces right. Leave SQRT, that is the square root. All right, leave that function in there. All right, so once again, you see how close this is. This is 1.34. Check your work. Outstanding. All right, let's do this last one. And 3. And standard deviation. Sample size. All right, press enter, and you will have your answer. All right, so that's the way to calculate your standard error. All right, so far so good. Good work. Let's move on to this guy right here. This is a multiple choice question. All right, so if for some reason you cannot see the letters, you can go between A and B and drag it over. All right, so now that we can see this, let's do, which one is this? 7.025. All right, 7.025. A simple numerical value used as an estimate of a population parameter is known as, what we've been dealing with is point estimates. Yeah, yeah. So please get the one that says point estimate. This is your last one. All right. Ratify this. All right. Because I got a new computer, I think this is going to work. So I'm going to ratify mine. All right, good. It went in there pretty good. Please ratify your answer. All right, good. Please go to 7.027. Find it, 7.027. Good. All right. You see how these are slightly off. All right. And it goes on to say the sample mean is the point estimate of, all right, sample mean is this guy right here. Your sample is your X bar. Hey, hold on. Oh, sorry. Your sample mean is a point estimate of your population's mean. Yes, yes, yes. All right, good. All right. So please make sure it is that third one. All right. I'm going to spread this over so I can see that right. Let's make sure that you're ratifying this. All right. Please make sure you get it right and make sure you read this right. All right. So they did the reverse, the sample mean of the point estimator of your population's mean. All right. Good. All right. Now let's go to 7.29. All right. 7.29. In this one, they're looking at proportion, all right? A population proportion is 0.30. Type it in, all right? That, in essence, is your average. Good. And then a random sample of 200. Good. And then it says in parts A, your within value of 0.04. Please, some of you guys are just going to type in point 0.4. Stop the madness. Make sure that you're putting in all the decimal places provided to you. 0.04. All right, press enter. All right, so how do you find the standard error? Here's your formula. All right, double click on your P, grab your P's value, P, and that is how you calculate your standard error. Make sure that you have it right. Press enter. All right, I'm going to zoom up in this piece just a tad bit so we can see this a little clearer. Then we use the formula right here for probability. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. All right, P1 or P2, you always want to do your larger one first. Click it. The mean is the same as your P. Click it. Your standard error, click it. P1, mean, standard error. All right, make sure that you have all this stuff laid out just like this. Press enter, and that will be your probability within 0.04. So check your work. Outstanding. What is the probability of a sample proportion within 0.06? All right, I believe this is an exam question, so this is why we're doing the within again down here, 0.06. Press enter. All right, and here's your formula. We're going to grab it all, copy it, paste it. P2, your new P2, click it. Your mean, the same mean that you had before, and your standard error, or your new standard, or your standard error was this guy right here. It's not going to change. All right, good, good, good. P1, mean, standard error. All right, make sure that you get those right as well. Press enter. Outstanding. Copy that, paste that. Please make sure that you set this one up right. This will be on your exam. All right, so now that you have that, let's finalize this with this last question right here. Please go to 7.036. All right, the difference between the value of the sample statistic and the value of the corresponding population parameter is called what? All right, the difference is either your standard error or your sampling error. Which one would you say? Are we dealing with standard errors or are we dealing with sampling errors? All right. Make sure that you get the right one. All right. It is not standard error. It is your sampling error. Yeah, yeah. So don't get confused between the two. All right. We're dealing with sampling data. All right. So once again, I'm going to slide this over so I can see my actual answers. And we're dealing with sampling. So it's the second one right here. Please ratify your answer. Outstanding. So please don't get confused. Make sure that you get this right. Once you have it all greenified, submit for grading. All right. So we can actually use a sample to help us make informed decisions. All right. For the most part, what we're doing is calculating the standard error, then calculating the probability. All right. Whenever you hear the point estimate of the population mean is what they're saying is, what is your sample mean? We can use a sample to understand the population parameter, which is statistical inference. That's all I got for you. Have a great day. Until next time. Peace.